Hello, jet setters and homebodies. My name is Stripes, and we are back in the car studio today to talk about my recent trip to New Orleans. I just got back from spending 3 days in New Orleans, and I documented every single penny that I spent for a couple of reasons. One is at the beginning of the year, I decided to become a more conscious spender. I wanted to find out where all my money was going because I have some really big financial goals over the next 5 years, and I want to make sure that I'm spending consciously so that I can meet those goals. The first step was documenting everything that I spent in the month of December to just sort of try to feel out where I had some opportunities in adjusting my spending. One of the things I wasn't able to really suss out was how I spend my money when I travel. And that's because in December I didn't travel, and I have never spent the time or energy to document how I spend my money when I travel. I can tell you that I normally buy stupid little trinkets made out of plastic from some sort of tchotchke shop, and it rarely gets home. It's never on display. I'm always losing these little things or giving them away, or they break, they end up in the trash or landfill. So I really, really wanted to pay attention to that. And instead of buying these stupid little trinkets, I wanted to bring home something that I could actually look at in 20 years and say, oh, I remember when I went to that place and I had that experience, and this is what I brought home in order to remember that time. So with this recent trip to New Orleans, I thought this was a great opportunity for me to document every single penny that I spent to really understand what's going on when I travel. So here's the breakdown. The first thing that I will say is that I did not plan this out. A lot of my trips end up this way. I'm not really a planner. I get an idea, I look up the cost of something like the plane ticket or the hotel, or is it feasible? And then I just sort of start making arrangements. If I can drive, I always prefer to drive. But if I'm going all the way across the country and I only have a week, I'm going to go ahead and fly. New Orleans came up after I had this conversation with one of my clients about missing a Stevie Nicks concert last year. And I was telling her that I really, really wanted to see Stevie Nicks before either she passes on or I pass on, or it just doesn't become a thing anymore. And when I looked up her shows, she had one in New Orleans, and I thought, there's literally no better place on the planet to see Stevie Nicks than in New Orleans. So as soon as I got home, I started looking around to see if it was financially feasible. And it turns out it was. So I found a flight for $316. That was round trip from California to New Orleans. I thought that was a really good price, so I booked it. Then I started looking at hotels, and oh my Lord, they're so expensive, especially if you're in the French quarters. So I went onto a Hostel website instead, and New Orleans has an amazing hostel that is absolutely gorgeous, and $19 a night. So I booked it. 2 nights, ended up with a total of $41.98. Then I documented all of the transportation that I had to use to get from the airport to the hotel and back again. I took a historic trolley down to the Garden District. And then I took a Uber or Lyft from my hostel to the show. I will tell you that I do not historically even consider my transportation as something that I need to budget for or that I need to think about. I have a Lyft app on my phone, and so I just plug it in and I push go and I just go. Like, I don't think about this is going to cost me $12 and how many times, like, it's just not part of my budgeting situation. But after I went to New Orleans and I realized I spent $70 on transportation, it quickly locked into my brain that this is one of the problems with my spending. I don't consider myself a spender because I don't shop. Like, I don't go to places and bring home bottles of wine or, like big souvenirs or anything like that. Like, I just go and experience wherever I am. And it doesn't occur to me that $70 over 2 days was spent on Ubers. that's crazy to me. That's more than I spent on my hotel. So I'm glad that I documented this, because now I can lock that into my brain as something that I need to pay attention to when I'm budgeting for a trip. My food was $188.24. Now, I have food restrictions that I have to maintain for my health and comfort. Especially if I'm in a city where I'm not sure what the bathroom situation is, I cannot take risks. So I knew going into a place like New Orleans that the food was not going to be something that I was going to be able to freely consume. Everything is fried or barbecued. There's a lot of meat options and a lot of cream sauces and dairy products and just things that just my body is not okay with. So the food situation was something that I actually put a lot of thought and energy into before I went there. And I found the restaurants that I was going to be able to eat at. I looked at the menus before I got there, and I brought a lot of protein bars or food bars with me so that I could eat at least 2 meals a day, knowing that my body would be safe. And then I would splurge on the third meal of the day. And it actually ended up working really well. I didn't have any issues with my body, which was really nice. And I feel like I chose really wisely. And I even found a vegan restaurant with some amazing vegan choices. So all in all, the food was really a success in New Orleans. And I feel like $188, that's including the protein bars that I told you I brought with me. I feel like that's an appropriate amount of money to spend over 3 days in a city like New Orleans. Entertainment was the next thing that I spent a large chunk of money on, and that total came out to be $215.18. That is including the Stevie Nicks ticket. I also went to Preservation Hall, which I think was about $50, and that was unbelievable. That is probably, outside of Stevie Nicks, the highlight of my entire trip was going to Preservation Hall. I also included a ghost tour in that total. And, anytime that I was watching a street performer, there's so many street performers, and the way that I like to contribute to street performers is that if I spend more than a minute listening to them or I take any sort of pictures or video, I always contribute financially to what they're doing. I think that for me personally, I think it's rude to videotape or take a picture of a street performer and then not contribute to them financially, because you're getting something from them and they're giving it to you freely. And it just makes sense to me to drop $1 or $2 or $5, whatever you can, into their bucket. It feels like an equal exchange when that happens. So I included that in my entertainment bucket. And then something that surprised me so much, and I almost feel embarrassed talking about this. I don't want to say that I have shame around this, because I do not have shame around this, but I am shocked at how much money I spent on souvenirs after I practically declared that I don't shop, that I'm not a shopper. I don't bring home things. I just don't do it. Like, I'm racking my brain. Like, is this something that happens a lot when I travel and I'm just not aware of it? Maybe. But honestly, because I've never tracked it, I don't know. But I spent $569 on souvenirs. I'm going to tell you what that includes. And this is not to defend myself. This is just to understand where my money is going, because I'm shocked. absolutely shocked. So here goes. Here's my notes. I might need my glasses. Hold on. The chaos is real. Okay. So here's the breakdown of the $569. The first is souvenir t-shirts. I did not buy any souvenir t-shirts in souvenir t-shirt shops. Do you hear what I'm saying? Like, I didn't go into the shop with I went to New Orleans and all I got was a stupid t-shirt. That's not what I'm talking about. I bought 2 t-shirts. They were both, I don't know why I'm feeling so embarrassed about this. I'm just going to own it because it's my money. I could do what I want with it. The first souvenir t-shirt I bought was from Preservation Hall, and I think it was $40. The second one I bought was Stevie Nicks, and this t-shirt was $55. And when I tell you all that I went back and forth on this all freaking night, like, I saw it when I walked into the concert. I thought about it throughout the entire concert. After the concert, I went into the line, I got out of the line, I went back into the line, I got out of the line again. Oh my God, it was like deciding whether or not to buy a house, because $55 for a t-shirt, that's insane. But it's Stevie Nicks and it has the doves on it. Isn't she gorgeous? And then on the back it says New Orleans. And I thought, just get it. Just freaking get it. Jeez. So there's $100 just on 2 t-shirts alone, right? But I don't regret it because they're amazing t-shirts. They're also 100% cotton, and they're that really soft material. And then this thing also, again, I'm not trying to defend myself, but I do, like, these are the things I think about before I spend $55 on a t-shirt. You know how sometimes the silk screening has that weird, almost puffy feeling, and you know it's going to crack in a couple of washings and it's just like not going to be a nice t-shirt? This one does not feel that way. It doesn't have that puffiness to it. And I feel like it's going to age in that really cool vintage agey way. And I can see myself being able to wear this for several years. So fingers crossed, I did not spend $55 on a t-shirt that I will be recycling next year. I hope not. I hope not. The other thing I spent money on were books. Now this is ridiculous for several reasons. Okay. The first is that I only brought a carry-on with me. So I purchased 4 books, and not paperbacks, full hardback or hardcover novels. 4 of them. Put them in my backpack and carried them home with me. Stupid number 1. Again, I don't regret any of this. It just wasn't like the best idea I've ever had in my life. Anybody who's followed me for a while knows that when I travel, the one thing that I really try to make sure that I bring home with me is a book from a local bookstore that's either written about the place that I'm in or at, or it's been written by somebody who's from that area. And extra credit points if it's paranormal or true crime. So I go to New Orleans, and Anne Rice, the mother of all vampires, who is from New Orleans, lived and died in New Orleans, and wrote about her vampires from New Orleans. Of course I'm going to buy Interview with a Vampire there. Like, I don't own that book, even though it's a phenomenal book. I don't own it. And I guess I don't have to. And it just makes sense to me that I purchase it from the bookstore where she did all of her signings, that's across the street from the cemetery where she is buried. Of course I'm going to buy it. And of course they're going to charge $50 for it, because why wouldn't they? Yes, I can get this on Amazon for less money. But this book came from the bookstore. I couldn't afford the $500 signed copy, so I got the $50 unsigned copy. And when I look at this book on my bookshelf, I'm going to be able to say I got that at the Anne Rice bookstore across the street from the cemetery where she was buried, down the street from where she lived, about the vampires. I mean, you don't get any better than that. You just don't. Then I found myself in another bookstore that was near Jefferson Square, and it was the home of an author from the 1920s which I am blanking on right this very second. But he lived in this house, and the house then turned into a bookstore, and it is just the most charming old bookstore you've ever seen in your whole life. And there were so many books in there that I wanted. I had a stack, y'all. I had a huge stack of books. I wanted all of them. I chose three of them. One of them was by the author who, again, I cannot remember the name of. The other one was a silly book that was just an impulse purchase, I will admit it. And then the third and final one was a book about the axe murderer, which is my favorite murderer of all time. That coincidentally happened. He happened to do all of his killings in New Orleans. And I bought a book that is a historical documentation of his assumed killings there. He was never caught, and nobody was ever prosecuted for these murders. And there's a lot of different stories about whether or not there was one axe murderer or several axe murderers. It's very interesting, which I think is why I love it so much. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. I bought 4 books, which was ridiculous, but that, each book being between $30 to $50, of course, it's gonna, like that, we're already at, what, $300 out of this $500. So for t-shirts and books. So the last 2 things that I purchased to take home with me, one was local art from local artists. And I think that's brilliant because I love to decorate my home with art. And one of the artists, I was actually able to meet her, and she was describing to me her process. And one of my favorite forms of art is printmaking, and she was a printmaker. And so she was explaining to me what she does and how she does it, and she was able to sign the print for me, and it was just a really cool experience. So I'm really glad that I spent the money on that piece of art. And then the other art that I purchased was some watercolors, which is my other favorite form of art, from a local artist who does watercolors of the French Quarters. And I wasn't able to afford his originals, but he had little postcards, and so I bought a couple of postcards, and I was excited to be able to contribute to this person's livelihood, and I was able to pin up some of these postcards like at my workplace, and it's a nice little reminder that I was there. And it's beautiful. And then the last thing that I spent my money on while I was in New Orleans was a hat. Again, I don't feel shame in this, but the hat was $170. And I love hats. I wear them all the time. I love sun hats. I wear them constantly, especially in the summertime. And I was walking around, there were all these jazz musicians wearing these beautiful felt hats. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to own one of those for sure. But I didn't want to just buy another $20 felt hat that doesn't really fit my gigantic head, and it was going to end up in a box somewhere. Again, like, consciously spend your money, right? If it doesn't fit and it's not high quality and it wasn't made well, what's the point of owning it? So I did a little research, a little Googling, and discovered that one of the top 10 hat companies in America, it happened to be in New Orleans, and it happened to be about 2 blocks away from the hostel that I was staying at. So I went in and I walked over to the salesperson and said, and I gotta tell you that this hat store was not like the typical hat store that you find on a beach boardwalk, for example. I feel like every touristy town has a hat shop, right? We've all seen them. And I go in every single time and I never find anything that fits because, again, my head is gigantic. But I love hats and I love hat shops. And so I went in, and this was different. It was almost like, it reminded me of like this really old, I don't even know how to describe it other than, the wand shop at Harry Potter where the wall is full of boxes and they've got like little labels on them. This shop was like that. Like, it looked like the boxes were almost like tilting, and there was kind of stuff everywhere. And I was just really excited about the feeling that this hat shop had in it. So anyway, I walk in, the salesperson comes up to me, and I said, A, I have a gigantic head and nothing ever fits my head properly. And B, I'm looking for a high quality, authentic New Orleans summer hat. And he goes, yeah, here's what I can offer you. And none of them really worked for me, for my style. And I was getting a little disappointed. And I said, well, you know, I was kind of looking for like a cross between an Indiana Jones, a jazz musician, and a straw hat, you know, like a Southern sort of hat. And he goes, I think I have what you're looking for. So he pulls up this hat and it was freaking perfect. Like it fit like a glove. It was meant for my head. It was exactly the brim I was looking for. It was exactly the top that I was looking for. It was perfect. And so I was like, yes, this is it. This is the one. And he goes, okay, yeah, this is a great hat on you. And I said, did you not show me this because it's not an authentic New Orleans hat and that's what I was asking for? And he started laughing and he said, actually, this is probably the most authentic New Orleans hat we have because my great-grandfather designed this hat for Stetson. I think I'm saying that right. The hat company in Texas that does all the cowboy hats and coincidentally did the Indiana Jones hat. And I was like, hold on, back up. What did you just say to me? He said, yeah, this store is like, I don't know, 4th or 5th generation owned. We've been here since 1860. I'm the next generation of this hat company, and my great-grandfather or grandfather designed this hat from New Orleans for the Stetson hat company. And I was like, well, why didn't he show me this in the beginning, dude? It's like, this is everything I was looking for, and it's the last hat you show me. Anyway, I bought the hat, and I freaking love it. And what was so cool about it was that he spent time to tell me, like, this is how you care for this type of hat. Like, this hat should last you the rest of your life with proper care. And this is how you hold it, and this is how you put it on and take it off, and this is how you store it. And I'm telling y'all, when I got on the airplane, I was holding this hat like it was a child. I was like, don't touch my hat. Because I wanted to make sure that it got home safe and sound. And I think that was about $170. So I didn't bring home a whole lot of trinkets and souvenirs and whatnot, but what I did bring home was expensive. And I was able to unpack very quickly. I put the books on my bookshelf and they bring me so much joy. I've been wearing my t-shirts, I've been wearing my hat, and I've been able to enjoy the artwork that I brought home. And I think that is the point to what I'm trying to do, which is to consciously spend my money so that I don't look back in a couple of months or a couple of years and think, why did I do that? Why did I spend my money on that? I want to be able to look back and say, I got that piece of artwork in New Orleans, or I got that t-shirt when I saw Stevie Nicks, and have all of those memories flood back into my brain. I think the last thing that I would like to sort of touch base with you guys on as far as spending money is concerned is that I figured out pretty quickly that places in New Orleans were not going to allow me to use the bathroom or charge my phone unless I purchased something. So I became very strategic about when I took a coffee break or purchased water from a bar, for example, or even lunch or snacks or any of those types of situations. I always made sure that it was around the time that I needed to use the restroom and that my phone needed to be charged. I don't always have the luxury of being able to plan out when I need to use the restroom, but for some reason on this trip, it worked. And I was able to take a couple of very well planned out breaks, have some coffee, have some lunch, charge my phone, use the bathroom a couple of times, and then go on my way. And it didn't irritate me to spend $4 on a bottle of water. That's right, $4 on a bottle of water, because I knew that I was also getting to use the bathroom and charge my phone at the same time. And a lot of the places that I chose to stop in had sidewalk seating areas. And so I was able to sit and watch the people walk by. There were a lot of bands that were walking by and playing at the same time. And so it was just a really pleasant way to spend the afternoon. And with that, being said, that is how I spent my money in New Orleans. I don't have any regrets. I am very surprised at how it all sussed out, and I will be probably making some adjustments here and there, although not many. Like I said, I'm really proud of how I spent my money on this trip, and I'm excited for the next one. So thank you so much for joining me on this breakdown of how I spent my money in New Orleans. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can leave them down below. And the rest of the New Orleans videos will be coming out as soon as humanly possible. As you can probably tell, I've been a bit under the weather, and the last thing I want to do is look at a screen and edit 3 days worth of videos. So hopefully this one will tide you over for a minute, and the rest of them will be coming out shortly. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful time, and I can't wait to spend time with you again shortly. Take care.